Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Sustainable Activism webinar. My name is Lisa Levinson, and I'm your host for this evening's program. And this is part of In Defense of Animals' campaign to help people who help animals by providing emotional resources and tools so that we can continue helping animals for the long haul. And my name is Lisa Levinson. I'm the director of the campaign, and it is absolutely my complete thrill and honor to welcome our featured speaker for today. I'm going to give a little background about her so that you can get to know her as well. Some of you may already know Clare Mann because she's really on the top of many of our minds, having just published a book called Vystopia, So here goes. Clare Mann is an Australian-based vegan psychologist, communications trainer, and an animal rights campaigner. Consults with people all over the world to help address the personal and social challenges of being vegan and living in a non-vegan world. And she is the author of the book I just mentioned, Vystopia, The Anguish of Being Vegan in a Non-Vegan World. Her website is veganpsychologist.com, and I will go ahead and put that into the chat box. So again, it's my pleasure to welcome Clare. How are you, Clare?
Wonderful to be here. It's early morning in Australia, of course, and it's my absolute pleasure. And anyone calling in to In Defense of Animals, what a fabulous organization, and thank you for everything you're doing.
Well, we're very excited to hear what you have to tell us today about coping with activist stress. So I will let you take it away.
Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen here. Let's have a little look here. Perfect. Great. Now, hopefully everybody can see that, Lisa.
Yes, we are seeing it now.
Excellent. Lovely. Well, thank you. And as I say, it's an absolute honor to be here. I was recently in the Animal Rights 2018 conference in LA, and Lisa and I met for the first time. And it was a bubble of 4 days of really being a little vegan village and learning about people all over the world who are truly stepping up their activism and all working together. I say this almost at the beginning of any of my talks now. I really do believe we are the ones we've been waiting for. We're at a time in our history when we have an opportunity to help people make a decision really between selfishness and compassion. And anyone who's been involved in animal rights for a long time, of course, knowing what we know, what we call the burden of knowing, has opened our hearts and minds and expanded our bandwidth of compassion beyond our families, our communities, other people, to other species, of course. And so today, what I'm going to do is I've prepared a webinar for you. I've got some things that I can give you, resources that you can go away and practice. So let's really get started. The burden of knowing is enormous. So when we become aware of the ubiquitous abuse of animals around the world, we find out about factory farming and live exports and animal testing, and even people that have been involved in this movement for a long time are constantly shocked at new things that come about. And so how do we live with that burden of knowing? And I'll be sharing a little bit more about my actual book later, because so many people around the world have actually contributed to that. But the burden of knowing and coming back into a world that is so challenging, when we try to tell people what we know and they tell us not to tell them what to do, or what about worrying about people, there is this kind of double angst. And a lot of people obviously do activism, and I'm very involved in the Cube of Truth, and that's obviously part of Anonymous for the Voiceless, where people are taking to the street and showing people firsthand what is going on. And that's become something that I've been involved in activism for about 10 years. And I think I'll give you a little bit of my story, because it really also lends weight to where I am now and some of the tools I'm bringing to the movement. I actually gave up meat about 40 years ago when I read a book by Bob Geldof. And there may be some people on the call who are old enough to remember him, of course, of the Boomtown Rats, Tell Me Why I Don't Like Sunday. And I just read about an abattoir. And I didn't see anything, I didn't hear anything. But even as I'm telling you now, I am watching the fate of a cow go through that process. And I gave up meat right away. Doesn't make me any better or any worse than anyone else. It means that I emotionally connected with the suffering at that level purely by creating that visual in my head and reading those words. People come to this in different ways, and some people take a time to actually get there. But as I continued my vegetarian journey, believing, of course, that I was doing the right thing, many vegetarians are there, of course, because they do this because they don't want to hurt animals. And of course, we've all been lied to about the dairy and egg industry. And so about 10 years ago, I became aware of the factory farming of animals. And I was sent a video by Animals Australia, one of the largest protection groups in Australia. And it was through that I came to know about what was happening in intensive animal farming and came face to face with the pursuit of profit with no responsibility. And I honestly did not believe, in 20 years at the time of being a psychologist, having worked in all sorts of areas with human suffering, I honestly did not know I could hurt that much. And so my whole family became vegan, including our dogs, and we started our journey. So I put the Cube of Truth image up there to show that I became very involved in activism. I started to MC live export rallies, factory farming, greyhound racing, and just started to also stuff a few envelopes and do all the things that we do, which is whatever is necessary to bring this message to the world. And as soon as I started to go out there and do that, a lot of people started to contact me and talk about the anguish of being an animal rights campaigner, and also the anguish of being a vegan, someone whose life is underpinned by the non-use and exploitation of animals. And I started to gather that information, and a pattern started to emerge, which very much started to mirror what was going on in my own life, because I was feeling depressed and angry and anxious, and I started to dislike human beings. And over 10 years, of course, much before then for myself, because of my own training and the personal development I continue to do, I had very powerful tools to transmute that grief and rage of suddenly thinking, why didn't we know this, into powerful action for change, and also bring myself to a state of empowerment so we can be there for the animals. But people in their journey are at different stages, of course. So over 10 years, I've gathered a lot of case study information. And also I did a very large survey which started to highlight that vegans and animal rights campaigners suffer from something peculiar to this burden of knowing. And I have called that Vystopia. I know a lot of people know that term already, and I hope it's a gift that I've given to the world, just the word, because it is not new to vegans and animal rights campaigners. And let me just share with you what that is. I'll give you a definition in a moment. And why don't we just go into that? And I'll share with you why. So I know there's a little bit of a lag on this coming up, but let's have a look. Vystopia. Hopefully come up now. And it says the existential crisis experienced by vegans arising out of the awareness of the non-vegan world, translate collusion with a dystopian world. Now, why has Clare made that so formal? It needed an absolute definition, largely for the psychology profession, who was trying to pathologize what is happening to vegans. It's also that awareness we find out when we see these industries that abuse animals and we realize the profit motive behind it. So that greed and ubiquitous animal exploitation, speciesism. Now, let's just go to a less formal definition that we can all understand. So dystopia sounds a little bit like utopia or dystopia. A utopia which we all long for and where we're all working towards through our activism is a place of joy and freedom, abundance and compassion, kindness. And a dystopia is a world of darkness, greed, totalitarianism, separatism. I believe that animal rights campaigners, vegans, are suffering from a vystopia. And that is the knowledge of the systematized cruelty towards animals. And when we tell other people, almost that trance-like collusion with that dark world, that cover-up that they don't even know they're part of. And that's where we get those responses. Don't tell me what to do. Surely people are more important than animals. Speciesism. I have a right to choose what to eat. And we are almost brought to our knees because of this burden of knowing. And otherwise, compassionate, kind, lovely members of our family, we really can't understand that. And people have to make the emotional connection. So for us to become exquisite communicators, we have to work through the stress that is caused on a regular basis of what we know, and particularly people in frontline animal work, doing animal rescues, just watching information and sharing it with people is very traumatic. So how do we deal with that stress? Turn it into powerful action for change, and then couple that with exquisite communication so that we influence people to say, tell me more. So the challenge is, of course, with Vystopia, that burden of knowing. It's not only excruciating agony we feel when we know about the suffering of animals, and we want no cages, but it's the trance-like reactions of people that say the government would never allow this, or if it wasn't legal, it wouldn't be a problem, they would stop it. But another question comes is, what else don't I know? Because if we don't know about 156 billion animals that are being used by a mere 7.6 billion of us, what else don't we know? And that's when we start to tell other people, and we say, well, we can't believe everything the government says. Or, what about medicine? There's, we sure there's always not any testing on animals, but maybe if we've seen that level of greed in the animal industries, also maybe it's in others. And people call us conspiracy theorists. So we want to come away, no wonder we're under stress. We're trying to save the animals. We're working with these wonderful creatures that deserve lives of their own. But then we have the resistance of other people, and we also have to deal with the world. So we all know this, and I hope, just sharing this, it gives us a sort of validation for our experience as much as anything else. But the most important thing is, what do we do with that? Because I've seen people either break down or they break through. Now, self-care is absolutely essential. Now, I was reminded of this recently through emceeing the documentaries Dominion. Now, many of you may have seen that. It's the Australian documentary, which is taken by undercover footage, which is now out in the world, of what is happening behind closed doors in Australia. It really is the Australian Earthlings. Now, I've seen that 3 times because I MC it. And on the last occasion, which was in New York City, it took me about 2.5, 3 weeks to actually get over that. Because it's traumatic to watch when we empathize with suffering. Actually, the average person, I believe, in fact, Jonathan Safran Foer, who's in the US, wrote that wonderful book, Eating Animals, sharing insights of 3 years of research around America. I remember talking to him and him saying that a large poll had been held in the US, right across, like a census, right across the US. And he said that Americans agreed on one thing and one thing only, something in excess of 95%. They all agreed that there should be legal protection against cruelty to animals. That was the only thing they actually agreed on. And I honestly believe if we held this in Australia, we'd find a similar thing. And so the mass majority of people, when they see animal cruelty, they will be distressed by it. But often people block that out with their defenses because it's too painful, because they may feel powerless knowing what to do. So in watching Dominion, I reminded myself of the importance of self-care, not just when we're getting a little run down. If we're going to deal with the stress of being in here for the long haul, the animals need us today, tomorrow, and in the coming years to bring this kind of world, and I actually believe we'll see a vegan world in our lifetime. And I'll share that a little bit later as to why I'm so optimistic. But it reminded me is I'm going to teach you some powerful things of what you need to put in place. Because I was able to move from this. It took me several weeks. I was traveling as well. I was a little run down on flights and things. But it reminded me that this information is never going to be okay. But we've got to find a way to, almost as Sean Monson of Earthlings, I spoke to him recently in LA, said we have to use ourselves as a filter. We have to allow it to go through our bodies. We witness with our eyes what the animals suffer. And then we use that powerful reaction. We transmute it into powerful action for change. So many activists, of course, merely survive, of course. Now, I don't know where people are on their journey. But we go through a process when we first find out what is going on. I know a lot of you are have been in the movement for a long time. So we'll talk about the whole sort of range. But a lot of people, I want to explain to you what happens when we become aware, either at the beginning or we again are finding out about new things. The Australian publics have been brought to their knees at the moment, not just the activists, when we've had our 19th expose of the live export trade. And it's the first time in Australian history, an animal protection group has been moved to take the Agriculture Department of the government to court. Now, they were going to do that over the breaking of the law and allowing industrialists to create the most heinous cruelty towards animals, which we saw on our television screens through an expose. But also people, the public, were saying, well, how deep does your pocket have to be to break the law? Now, just before we took them to court, there was a quick back turn by the government, who had to admit that they had messed up. And so they had to pay all the costs, of course, of months of preparing for those cases. But that means that things are changing. And so when we get the public to see what is going on, we have to be really on top of our game, strong in ourselves, so we can actually transmute, help them transmute it into powerful action for change. And let's have a look. Whenever we come across information, that repeated association with the material, which I experienced with the third time of watching Dominion, our immediate association of emotions is, and I'm going to show you what happens in the brain and also what we can change to not keep having those traumatic reactions, because it becomes a knee-jerk reaction. We literally get wired to automatically react in that way. And that constant reinforcement of feeling those emotions, having the negative thoughts, thinking the world is really a dreadful place, wondering in level change, it's associated with a whole range of negative or emotions, that fight or flight hormones. We then actually just gets reinforced. So let's look at breaking those patterns, because we can't logically change this when we feel distressed by what we know. So there's a lot of external and internal triggers, watching an external things that happen, exposes on the television, taking animals out of, animals being dumped at shelters, all these sort of things, but also those internal reminders, those memories, things we watch on social media. These are all powerful triggers. And our solution really is to, instead of coming across that information, me playing back to what I was seeing in Dominion, is we have to, and I've said it before this evening, is transmuting our grief into powerful action. But that's not a logical process. When we do that, and I'm going to show you some really powerful techniques today to bring it out of your body, but not distract yourself. When we distract ourselves or we depress it, we're really building up trouble for the future. And only then, when we're really constantly resourcing ourselves, we're able to switch from those negative thoughts, feelings, and trauma, it's very real, into this place of empowerment. That's when we can access powerful words and become powerful communicators. We can also then get out of the way of ourselves and collaborate with other people and work through our differences, share our talents. Well, look, let's move from anguish to powerful action. Now, I was talking to Victoria Moran yesterday. I was on Mainstream Vegan, the program, and she said, I've been a vegan for 35 years. I am Vystopia denial. She said, because I'm not caught in that deep anguish. Because I said, well, hopefully in 35 years, much, much less, you're able to transmute that into powerful action. But I know she does very powerful things of self-care to make sure on a daily basis she's returning to that safe place. So we cannot reinforce this enough. What we also need to do is we need to rewire our brains. Now, that means we're heart, body, and soul, of course, because whenever we're thinking or feeling things, say we're thinking about a traumatic event, little nerve cells start firing, what we call firing and wiring. Therefore, it's linked to our thoughts, feelings, sensation, hormones, like a little circuit, like a little wired circuit. So we only have to watch. I only have to see that image of Dominion, for instance. And if I hadn't worked through this and broken those connections, I would be thrown back into remembering the images. Then, in an instant, those hormones come into my body in a fight and flight way. And then I say, oh my gosh, I'm remembering it. We think, we feel, we have sensations, and it literally gets fired and wired, and we reinforce it in the brain. In fact, when we take our skulls off, those little indentations in the brain are not just random. The more something is reinforced, where we're really visiting with our bodies, our hormones, our thoughts, our emotions, those little grooves get deeper. But when we extinguish them and we learn powerful tools to move them to a positive place, we're firing and wiring more positive ones. Not ignoring what's going on. Just imagine, we know that we're far more powerful when we are in a state of ease in our body. We're not in a state of stress. So how we rewire our brain? It's through becoming aware of the triggers that happen to us. And I've actually got a wonderful meditation. We won't be able to do it today, but I'm going to send you the link so that you're able to have that on your phone and regularly use it to move from that place of disempowerment to empowerment. We want to extinguish those associations and create the neural pathways. Thinking, well, we're talking about activism here, but we're really talking about the brain at the moment. Let me just explain that. Changing the mindset there. Let me just tell you what actually goes on here. Say you see a traumatic image. Somebody posts something on Facebook and the video starts playing. And we all know how, gosh, we can't get that out of our mind. We're tuned into that, our empathy, really. There's an immediate reaction. And we go, oh my gosh, how's that possible? You see me putting my hand on my chest. So there's a visceral reaction. Instantaneously, adrenaline and cortisol flood into the body. And then we go, oh, I can't believe that's happening. How can people do that? And there we've given a label to it. So there we start to feel hopeless and despairing. Is it ever going to change? And this then sets up a little circuit. So we only have to become angry again, and it can actually set off the image in our head or the feelings of hopelessness. Or we start feeling hopeless one day because something else has happened, and that triggers into the other thing. So each of these, whatever is activated, reacts to the other ones when we're firing and wiring those. And this is this little neuroscience of stress reactions. I think there's a lot of this technical side, because when we understand it, we understand why we can't just pull ourselves together, so to speak. So what happens? That thought, feeling, reaction, the sensations, the image, the physical reactions create a little pattern. It's a little firing and wiring, little neuroscience picture here, and that I only have to think back and go into the images of dominion, and it's as if I'm actually in that cinema watching it. Okay, you relive it. Now think about that with other things in your life that's unrelated to animals. An argument with a loved one, loss of a job where you felt you were badly treated, somebody dying in your life. You only have to think about that, and it's almost you can actually relive it. The body holds score. But with very traumatic stress reactions, the body says, I'm not safe, so it throws us into this very reactive state. And that's when we're not powerful. We need to actually change that. Okay, whoops, let's just pop that back. So one of the ways to do something about it, I'm going to teach us a technique in a moment called emotional freedom technique. You've come across it before. I ask you to sort of sit with me. If you haven't, I promise you it's a very powerful tool for change. But what you can see there is on veganpsychologist.com/meditation, you can download a meditation that gets you to slow down your mind and your body. Because for our minds and to actually reprogram those neurons, so to speak, that firing and wiring, when we slow our brains down, you know, when you're just about to fall asleep, or you've had a busy day, during the day you're active and our stress levels go up and down depending on what we're doing. But later in the day, or even during the day, you might find that you suddenly you think about something else. And I'm just looking out the window at the moment. You look out the window and you think, gosh, that's a good idea. I'll do that when I get home. And then you suddenly think, oh, I'll get back and attend. When we slip into those daydreams, our brains are slowing down from the active beta state. We put it on a little graph. The little lines will be going very fast. We slow it down and we go into alpha. It's a little bit sort of unconscious. And then we wake up and go, oh, I'll do that again. So this is actually very important though. At school, children are constantly told to attend. But when they go in and out of their alpha state, young children particularly need to go there more. That's where our moments of inspiration come. That's when we're most susceptible. So in downloading this meditation, through relaxation, I get you to slow those brain waves down from active beta, when we're looking to the outside world and reacting, coming into alpha, slowing down, and then I get us to bring into our awareness, creating a vegan world of kindness and joy and utopia. And most importantly, teaching our bodies emotionally what it feels like to be in that future now. In the same way, when we have a traumatic reaction and we remember, it's as if we're reliving that because we're firing and wiring and negative emotions. Negative in the sense, anger and grief and pain are, when I say negative, in the sense if we stay there and they immobilize us. These are normal human responses, and knowing what we know, we should be feeling them. So let's use another word, ones that actually get us to fight or flight is probably a better definition, but keep us immobilized. So we only have to think back to it, and they're firing and wiring, and stress and adrenaline and cortisol keep us in that I've got to run away and get away from this. When I'm in this meditation, when we bring ourselves to visualize a place of kindness and joy and pull up in our body a memory of that place when we feel empowered, when we imagine what we're going to be doing, how are we going to feel when we have a vegan world, when we can walk through a shopping mall and nothing provokes us, no external triggers of what the smells of foods that we know are really animals, or people putting milk in their coffee, or walking past a shop with a mohair jumper or something. Imagine living in that world, and I've just experienced it for 4 days at the Animal Rights Conference, and I know it's the world that's coming, and it's a world of abundance and joy and delicious food to eat, of course. But when we do that through meditation, we actually teach our bodies emotionally. When we regularly do that, we can move from the traumatic event to a more empowered one, not through distraction, but using exquisite self-care. I wish we had a half-day workshop and I'd take us through lots of meditations. But what I'd like to do now then is stay with that body experience. How are we dealing with stress? And as I said, I can't reiterate this enough. I don't suggest anything to anyone that I don't do myself. I do a lot of emceeing, I do a lot of speaking. There's a lot of material I have to see. And like anyone involved in animal protection, we often see the things that don't get on social media, that are not allowed to be shown, certainly on the news and things. And so it's very traumatic. And so I regularly practice. I have routines, which I will share with you, and I'm sure many people have them already. Don't let this slip by. It is too important, because then, through exquisite communication, we're going to be able to influence our animals. A quick little look at our clock. Right, let's move on. Okay, so in order to break those patterns and force the stress, let's have a look at some self-care. One of those things will be emotional freedom technique in a moment. So you're working in animal protection. Say, for instance, when I came out of Dominion, I advocated, of course, that for people to support each other, we had a debriefing. And then Chris Delforce and Lissy Jane, who were the undercover investigators there. There was someone from Farm Sanctuary, wonderful Jean, of course, who was there, and somebody from PETA, and James Aspey. The debriefing, the social support. It's very, very important when you're sharing. Say you've just done a rescue. Say you've just taken a lot of animals out of a situation. You're trying to rehouse them. Or you've taken whatever work people are involved in, whether they're working fish in the sea or wildlife or factory farmed animals or wildlife in your own area. It's upsetting when we've come across ways in which people could care for animals much more. And so that debriefing is important. Once you've done that and you've shared how distressed you feel, have a pact before that even happens. If you're going to debrief with people and say, look, we need to share this, I need to be heard, but let's make a pact that we're going to help each other through that process to say, okay, now what can we do? So that we say, okay, what are the positive steps we can take to remind each other, or if not, we're just going to drag each other down, all right? It's can't just stop at what I call wound sharing. We all need to share that, okay? Looking after our physical and emotional health. I'll briefly go over this too, but it's so important. A whole food plant-based diet cannot be advocated enough. Of course, we all eat a range of foods, and so should we, from pizzas and burgers and wonderful plant-based foods. But resourcing ourselves with the high-quality food on a regular basis is so important. We cannot be junk food vegans and expect us to be on top of our game, okay? Our emotional health, knowing when we need to take time out. I work with a lot of people that do vigils in the SAVE movement, standing at the slaughterhouse door, very emotional. And often a guilt that comes, they feel I'm not doing enough. The animals need us to take time out to look after our emotional health. Some of the techniques, through emotional freedom technique, through meditation, through breathing, I'll be sharing with you. Now, yoga and meditation are the only two things that are clinically proven to reduce anxiety. I advocate yoga because it is a place when you become very present, you become aware of your breathing. It's something you can do at home. I do about 10 minutes a day, 5 days a week. I've kept it up for 40 years. Choose something that you can do that becomes such a habit of your body. You start at the beginning of the day and you know that is a place to return to. And so I get up in the morning when I'm up getting in an early train into the city. It's 5 days a week. I would be doing my yoga. Breathing, slowing down only for 10 minutes, but I can keep that up. Yes, I can do more, but that doesn't mean I do less on another day. So each day I start with that place of creating that sanctuary. I also meditate. Learning to meditate, where you slow things down, you set your intention for the day, you vision the world that we want to create. These are all incredibly powerful things that when the going gets tough and we feel under stress in our everyday lives, but also in the work we do, we are able to go back to that internal sanctuary and able to switch there. Having downtime and finding joy is absolutely essential. We also become an invitation for change, of course. But as Lisa said, we've got to be in for the long haul. And so cultivating self-care, I cannot tell you enough. So let's have a look, and I'm keeping an eye on the clocks to make sure we have lots of time for questions, and particularly how do we, when we're doing the frontline work. Emotional freedom technique is an incredibly powerful tool. It's basically used for trauma situations. So say, for instance, there's been a natural disaster in a country, a big flooding, and a whole village has been swept away. And people have lost their loved ones, and their homes have been destroyed, and everything they know is safe about. When aid workers go to talk to those people, or they come to see counsellors and therapists, they can't talking about those issues causes such a traumatic reaction in the body, they can't talk about it. And yet their body is showing all the traumatic reactions. They're having flashbacks, they're having nightmares. Anybody bangs a door, there's very sort of heightened stress response. In other words, they're not able to revisit the details of that, but their body is showing all the symptoms of the trauma for the reasons that I've shared with you, but of course on an enormously powerful scale. Their safety was in danger. The neurons are firing and wiring, that little circuit's going thing, and we try and talk to the person about it. It exacerbates it, and the person's so overwhelmed, they're not able to talk about it. It's very easy for people to dissociate in those situations. We don't want them to do that. We want them to work through that and transmute that into something else. So emotional freedom technique is a way of identifying that emotion in the body, giving it a label that the person yourself chooses. It's not a word that's given to you. Because when you say, I feel anguish or I feel frightened, those words are personal to you. My experience of being frightened is going to be different than yours and have different connotations. It also requires us to then tap on the body. Now, maybe there is a magic, I also do believe in magic and miracles, but we don't have to be perfect where we actually tap, although we're more skilled in acupressure and acupuncture. And myself would give us more information of the importance of that. But emotional technique is making contact with the body, okay? You might scream. So for instance, when we're tapping, we're making an association whilst we're actually saying certain words to move the emotion through our body, and then actually from a place of the challenging fear and traumatic reaction to a emotion that we draw up in our body that is a place of positivity. But the tapping becomes like the trigger that can move us from one state to another. It truly is and I wouldn't use this with you unless I honestly know it works. I used it after Dominion, use it when I feel perhaps overwhelmed and I've got a little tight deadline and I really want to get something ready to take out to the world. Overwhelm is something a lot of us feel, of course, in the things we're trying to achieve. But what can actually happen, I'll show you the little technique and you can also access a video, you don't have to remember all of those, is move ourselves from one state to another so that in the end, I can just be tapping on my chest whilst I'm saying, I choose to feel. And I can resurrect that physiological reaction because I've trained myself to fire and wire and move myself to that state. Okay, now how powerful that can be rather than waiting for the external trigger, which is the great news that, you've rescued the animals and you think, oh, relief. That's an external trigger that says, I can now feel a little bit of ease. Often that information doesn't come. It certainly doesn't come quickly enough for us. And if we're waiting for the external reality to move our world, or when we've had a good night's sleep and the adrenaline's gone down a bit, we're giving our power away to the outside. Emotional freedom technique, when we practice it and take our body through a quick routine, which I will quickly share with you and send you the video later, we're able to move much more quickly. Imagine how much more powerful we're going to be as activists. We're not caught in the depths of despair with all the guilt that goes with it. Says, gosh, the animals need me to be better than this. All right, so firstly, be kind to ourselves. So very quickly, and I will move quickly on it, when you're doing it yourself, it'll be quick as this, is when you're feeling, and just think for the moment, just as you're listening here, and say, for instance, I've just watched a minion, I've just come out of that, make it real and in the moment, and you give yourself 3 adjectives to say what you're feeling. So I was feeling distressed, angry, and in pain, okay? So what I would do is I slow my breathing down. Breathing is so important. It's the first thing you can do if you can't even do any of this in the moment. When we're in shock, we take a sharp intake of breath, and what happens is the sympathetic nervous system kicks into place and be sympathetic to the stress we're feeling to say, whoa, I've got to look after you. When we breathe out, as all people practicing yoga know, we activate our parasympathetic nervous system. That brings us back into balance. So, there is a sort of science behind this, and behind our common sense, of course. So choose 3 words, and what I would then do is slow my breathing, check in with my body and just slow down, and then I start breathing and I start tapping. Therefore, I'm making contact with the body, and I'll just take you through these little areas. Number 1, and I say, although I feel in anguish and in pain, were the words I chose. I am in anguish, I'm angry and in pain. I love, honor, and respect myself. Say that 3 times. Okay? In the interest of time, I'll move more quickly. I then go down through the chakras, the different energy centers, and I say, feeling anguish, angry, and in pain. I breathe out. I'm making contact with the body. I do it on what we call the third eye. Feeling in anguish, angry, pain. Breathe out. You'd slow down. In the video I show you, I teach you a visual anchor so that you can see teaching the body. We go through here. We go through here. They only in the interest of time, and you're saying the actual words. You're making an association with the words while you're tapping. You're not fading or fixing it. Feeling anguish, angry, and in pain. You do a little circle. Feeling angry, anguish, and in pain. You would do it here. Okay? And you'd say, although I'm feeling anguish, angry, and pain, I love, honor, and respect myself. When you see the video, that'll be a much more slower process, far more present, without distracting yourself. You've made contact with the body. You've moved from the disembodied world of ideas and thoughts, bringing it into the body. Remember, we're firing, wiring, thoughts, sensations, emotions, hormones. So we're bringing it all together. But we don't want to stay there. So we choose, how do I want to feel? I wanted to feel calm, empowered, and hopeful. That was the words I would have chosen, and I did choose. And if you suddenly go, well, I now feel this, when you're in the height of distress, even though you've done the first one through, you're going to say, I don't feel that at all. I feel angry, anguish, and whatever. So we're going to play a little bit of reverse psychology. Promise you it works. Okay. So you then say, although I'm feeling anguish, angry, and in pain, I choose to feel calm, empowered, and hopeful. Okay? And you're breathing in and breathing out very slowly, breathing a little quicker than we normally would do. Just the time. We then go through here, choosing to feel calm, empowered, and hopeful. Now, I am making contact with the body and saying this at each of these stages, and then I get you to bring up, resurrect that feeling in your body. Because remember, when we even relive that experience, we think back to that happy time, that joy, that freedom, being out walking with in nature, having, hear a song, if it was positive. Our body has memory. We bring it up. And in that moment, we see this when neuroscientists wire people up, is our neurons are firing and wiring, and there's an increase in dopamine, cortisol, dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. Trust, feeling safe. All right. So these technique, I want you to get a copy of this. Practice it. I promise you. I go through this when I'm preparing myself, and I've been through and I've seen materials, as we all do, or feeling a little bit anxious about the human condition and our dystopia. Let's go through this. So how do you get hold of that? I'll be giving you a little link at the end to a free program, and there is a video in there. A little look at time. We're doing okay. We start a little late. So we're going to teach the emotion freedom a technique. Remember, we're going to be debriefing with other people. I'm advocating that we do meditation. We choose an exercise that we're regularly going to do. We have time out, and we factor into our lives time for enjoyment. Right? We do activism all the time. We're taking credit out of our energy bank, and that's not going to help us. So a couple of habits I'll share with you, which I do, is I have a daily mantra. So I always ask people, what happened to you when you woke up this morning? And a lot of people say, well, I woke up and a large number of 18 to 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds reach across and turn on FaceTime, Facebook, okay, and they see what's happening with people, all right, and the state of the world. In other words, we're giving all our power away to something else and someone else, and whether it's good news or bad news or someone else's off their diet, which is really no interest to us in that moment, is we're pulled into the world of other people. Therefore, our world continues. Remember, we're firing and wiring all the time. It's going plunging down into some sort of those stress hormones, and then we feel great that something's great's happened. There's been an expose, and all these animals have been released. And so we're being jerked into those external triggers all the time. I have a daily mantra. It takes about 30 days to create a habit. Psychologists say it may be 10, it may be 40. Habits are memory of the body. When people go to bed at night, if they forget to clean their teeth, they tend to jump out of bed and go and clean them. Not because the teeth aren't going to fall out, because it's a memory of the body. When you create a mantra, in other words, a little phrase that is in the present tense, it's positive and it's personal, and every morning you do it, in the end you'll wake up and you'll not be able to not do it. In fact, I can't not do mine because I've been doing it for years until I actually create another one. I extinguish this one and put another one in. So mine is, what a grand and glorious day filled with love, opportunity, and potential. I taught myself that. I don't have to think about, I really should get into a positive mindset. I've done it so much that I wake up, it comes into my mind, and then somewhere in the house there'll be some four-legged person with tail starts wagging and just reinforces that. Now imagine having that, you're just coming into awareness, we come up through that alpha state in our brain waves, our most susceptible, we come into activity, instead of being the external world, it's a positive thing like that. What a grand and glorious day filled with love, opportunity, and potential. Doesn't matter if I'm late for the train, got that moment of groundedness. That's self-care. All right? Choose one for yourself, and then I bring in that wonderful sense of that experience. All right? First things first, looking after your nutrition, doing that meditation. You've got to do for 5 minutes every day for the rest of your life, then occasionally do it. Keep putting credit back in the bank. In that self-awareness, check in with yourself, know when you need time out, drink enough water, have some fun too, see a good movie, an uplifting one. All of this self-awareness, and put in place every day to enhance your communication. Then we become empowered. It reduces stress, because if we know we're having an effect on people, we're the best voice for animals, and we're on top of our game, we start to reduce our stress. It starts with ourselves, and then we use the tools to get out there. Okay, so I'm going to be obviously increasing your influence and developing excellent communication skills. We could spend a whole year on this, and I'm going to let it come through the questions. So I'll answer that of how we can respond to people. If not, I'll pop some in. But when we improve certain techniques so that we partner with people when we're talking about these important issues to do with animal social justice and the imperative of veganism, there's ways to partner with people that stop people saying, don't tell me what to do. All right, so this is a little free course I'd like to offer you, which also has the emotional freedom technique. It's a free little video program that was recorded live when I was running a workshop called Thriving as a Vegan. It takes you through the emotional freedom technique. Mine's is what we've done today, but it's got some, you can see on the little left-hand side. So go on to veganpsychologist.com, scroll down. It's called Essential Skills for Vegan Advocacy. You can get access to that and obviously keep it. And then it'll have a little link within that, a little video to that emotional freedom technique in a handout. And I cannot advocate that enough. And lots of other tools that some we've touched on today and some not. All right. Okay, now we're getting very near to questions. But very briefly, just in the interest of time, I may return to it. I know a lot of people have bought Vystopia, and thank you for that. But Vystopia it's not just my book, it's our book. It's 10 years of research, of case studies of people, showing the common experience around the world. It's a book that the first chapter is called Lifting the Veil on the Truth. It's written so that you can give it to your non-vegan friend, family, doctor, boss, and say, read this chapter, then we'll have a conversation. It lifts the veil on the truth, and it gets them to think, oh, well, I was reading about this one thing, but really I'm reading about something else. Where else have I foreclosed and thought, oh, that could never happen? That opens the path and the way for us to have the conversation about animal social justice. If you put the coupon in, Vystopia 15, you can get 15% off. I'll leave that with you now. All right. Now, Lisa, I hope we haven't, I know we started late. I hope we've got 15 minutes, good 15 minutes for questions. I'm going to let you come back on line and ask some questions, I guess.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. That's really wonderful. I'm wondering if would you be able to stop sharing the screen so that way we can actually, we'll be able to see you a little bit better.
Just trying to get that here. You just keep talking amongst yourselves.
Okay.
Here we go. So I'm just going to come off that screen. I'm actually going to, oh, here we go. Here we go then. Now you're seeing everything. Go.
Wonderful.
Is that better?
Thank you so much. It might take a minute or two just because there's a little lag time, so it's
Here
possible.
We go. Stop sharing. Perfect.
Okay. Excellent. Yay.
Thank you.
Well, so this is a very exciting time because now we are able to ask Claire some questions directly. So again, my name's Lisa Levinson. I direct the Sustainable Activism Campaign for In Defense of Animals, and it's been our pleasure to have Claire with us tonight. And what I'd like to do is invite people, if you're on the phone with us, you can press *4 and then you will be able to ask your question live. If you're with us online, there's a little microphone icon on your computer screen, and from there you can unmute yourself, and also you can share your video. So these are ways that we would really like to hear from you. And if you're with us on Facebook Live, you can type into the comment section, and also if you're in the webinar, another way to ask a question is via the chat box. So I'll be helping to monitor those things. Looks like we have somebody who may want to ask a question. If you do, go ahead and say your name, and that will let us know if you're on the phone. Let's see. We've got a comment that I'd like to share with you, Claire, just because it's very special. Liz says that the webinar was amazing with such current and important information. And then she says that you are definitely who we've been waiting for. She thanks you and is excited to get the book and all of the resources that you mentioned.
Thank you. That's very kind. And I think it's very kind of you to say that, but we really are the ones we've been waiting for. All of us are in this together, and all of us are needed. We just have to bring our gifts to the world. And some of us are in street activism, some of us do undercover, we're on the world stage. Some of us cook delicious food for our family that convinces them that they don't have to give anything up to change their lifestyle and lead a kind of choice in their life.
Well, let's see. I think it looks like we have someone who might be trying to access us by phone, but I think we'll go ahead. And I wanted to find out if you had a question, Claire, that you'd like to, a commonly asked question that you'd like to share.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you very much. And typical questions that come up, Lisa, are how do I deal with the immediate when I'm caught? A lot of people do vigils, a lot of people are involved in the Save movement. And for those, I mentioned it briefly at the beginning, who don't know what that is, it's where a group of people go, usually in the middle of the night, because that's when these trucks go to slaughterhouse. They go to the door of the slaughterhouse where the animals are arriving. And they do that for a number of reasons, is to bear witness, is to honor their animal lives, to provide comfort. And one sure thing we know, through certain people that feed all this information back to us, around the board tables of industries like the meat and livestock industry, I can assure you they are talking about it. When they are aware that animal activists are stepping up the game and refusing to not allow this information to come to the world. But when we're in the presence of animals, and I have, like so many people, have experienced this firsthand, when we hear the cries, when we smell them, we catch their eyes, I make eye contact, it is so much more distressing than watching a video, of course. And you now know something about what's happening in the body. We are in a fight or flight situation. in that situation, I know people that I've taught this to who literally, as they're talking to the animals, are tapping on their body. And they can't just do that unless they have taught themselves to move from one to the other. Remember, that's a trigger to try and calm the body down, slow the breathing down, become absolutely present. One technique, it's never going to be okay. We don't want to feel neutral. We don't want to feel. Allow yourself to cry, to be sad, to afterwards, that social support, all the things I'm talking about really. Do you know, breathing, I cannot say enough. I've explained to you why it works, but really that's slowing down. People often have a panic attack in these situations. Now, nobody ever died of a panic attack. It's an over anxiety, but you feel as if you're going to die. You almost feel you're having a heart attack. Ironically, the body is trying to get back into control. Okay, it's in fight or flight. It's saying, get me out of here. The blood's flown to the back of the brain, which means we can't all access logic and reason. That's why people often, rush towards and might even push someone out of the way and then be taken into court the next day. They might also believe that's highly justified. I think it was Martin Luther King said, when we have such unjust laws, we have a moral obligation to break them. But it's keeping, when it's actually bringing ourselves back to that state of calm. Exercise, running, swimming, quite active exercises allow the adrenaline to move out. But having good social support around you, knowing you've got to counter that work with something more powerful. So it's not, when I see people that do it, I've seen the worst cases, I've seen people that won't even take their clothes off at night. They've been doing vigils and they literally keep their shoes on and think, I've got to be able to leave at any time. That's when we are so traumatized, we feel we keep needing to do it. And that's ultimately when we burn out, and that's not good for us. It's certainly not good for the animals. So that was one of them, Lisa, I guess. But a lot comes in about communication. So before I give you the communication one, has anybody come up with a question, or are questions also similar?
I'm not seeing anything. Oh, here's one. So this person is asking, do you feel that attending slaughterhouse visuals and Cube of Truth demonstrations makes people better animal rights activists? And there's a second question. These actions are terribly upsetting, but do you feel that they are worth it?
Sure, absolutely. I'd like to deal with those separately. I'm very involved in Cube of Truth, and I have a theory as to why I believe it works so well. And if I hadn't experienced it and I hadn't stood behind, I'll explain, because some people may not know what a Cube of Truth is. Let's look at the first one first, the SAVE movement, because we started talking about that, or going to vigils. It's enormously traumatizing, okay? Does it make us better activists? I believe it makes a lot of people better activists, because that is their calling, okay? I had the great pleasure to speak with Anita Crank, who was the lady who pioneered the SAVE movement. And remember on social media, that image of her giving water to a pig, and because, quote, it was the property of that slaughterhouse owner, she was prosecuted. Now, absolute madness of that, of course, we know, but also it brought it to the public eye, and the SAVE movement was created, which is called about bearing witness. If people find that there, for some people, I know people that say vigils are my thing. When I go there, I know I am doing something. I'm being there for the animals. I'm raising awareness in the public eye, because it often gets on television. It certainly gets into the minds of the owner or the industrialist and the shareholder, who is people around the board who know this, because they realize that we become a force to be reckoned with. For some people, they become better activists through that, because they know they're keeping up that sustained pressure. For other people, they find it so dispiriting. SAVE movements, the vigils are not my calling to do regularly, okay? It's something I think all of these, for me personally, is to always go and witness this at some stage, just because I choose, that's my particular thing I like to do. But it may not be for other people, okay? We have to do what we feel is greatest advocacy. People will come to this awareness through different things. Some are at the front door there. Let's have a look at Cube of Truth. For those that don't know what it is, touched on it at the beginning a little, of course, a cube of people hold up video footage of what is happening in, not only in slaughterhouses, but in animal testing and what is going on. Now, seeing is believing, okay? What happens, they stand in, you saw that image I threw up at the beginning with people with masks on. So people hold masks and hold television screens in public places, in shopping malls. Okay, and then advocates sort of are around with a mask on their arm to show that they are part of this, and they are there to talk to the public. If I hadn't have experienced it many times, I would not believe the high number of people that stand to watch it. And the ones that do, a tiny proportion say, my gosh, I can't stand this, walk away. They come close and they go, oh my goodness, what on earth is this? Let's have a think about it. Lisa, if I am showing you a video and say, Lisa, you need to see this, can you believe what's happening? And you know that I am an animal rights campaigner and you're just a member of the public or a member of my family who's not involved here, late cousin or something. I show you and I say, what do you think? Remember what Jonathan Safran Foer said? 95+% of people are horrified. These don't have to be activists to be horrified. Be carnists and they're horrified. They go, oh my God, that's awful. And they have to, of course, it then switches very quickly because now they have to answer to Lisa, who I know is an animal rights campaigner. So it switches to becoming an embarrassing thing or a self-consciousness of experiencing the emotion in front of you, who is going to say, well, what do you think? You can stop this. You don't have to buy this stuff. In other words, it switches from the experiencing the emotion, the trauma, the suffering of the animal, to switching to, I'm now going to feel judged in front of Lisa. What happens in the Cube of Truth, I believe, is that when people look at the footage, they're not looking at someone because the person with the mask is looking straight out, can't see the person, and is rigid and is not moving. The person is forced to experience their traumatic emotion in relation to the suffering of the animals, not in the dynamic of the relationship. It may only be for a short time, but we need them to move out of their logical brain, to drop into their bodies, and they go, oh my God, what on earth is this? And most people are shocked. And when we look at the video things, we see them, the public going, and people crying, they get upset. That's when a person comes along and says, have you ever seen this before? That's why I think it's so powerful. Because people say, oh, often it makes vegans on the spot. You know, I only read about stuff and actually gave up meat, not because I'm in any way superior or more sensitive. It's just that I've got a very visual memory. Other people come to this and they will immediately think they had no idea, but they have to make the emotional connection. So I believe the Cube of Truth particularly is very powerful, but I believe also the Save movement is. I believe doing vegan cupcake days is, being a graphic designer in an animal charity and bringing your gifts to bear, and actually in becoming an ethical vegan and not partaking in that, doing everything possible. That in and of itself is the most important thing you can do. Every day at the end of your day, as Victoria Moran said yesterday, you know that you have saved all these animals from suffering and trauma, and we're also influencing people just through our behavior. Hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you so much, Claire. That's an excellent answer to a very important question. I've even wondered that myself. So it's great to hear from you since you do both of these actions. Then we have a couple of other questions for you. One person says that she runs and does yoga to cope with her activism and with people who mock her for being a vegan. She said it really helps. So that's more of a comment, but she is talking about what you shared about the importance of physical health and how that influences our mental health.
Absolutely, well done. Yes, as I say, meditation and yoga, the only ones clinically proven to. But you know, we don't always need clinical proof for this. But you know, it gives some credence to some people who are questioning it. It might say, "Oh, would that really help?" We know it helps. Grounds the body, relaxes. You know, well done, and keep that up.
And there's another question that says, do you ever have people who are angry at you for not being mad? Or does your calmness help them?
Right, angry for not being mad. Thank you for thinking I look so calm. I can assure you I am absolutely furious with the state of the world, with what is going on. And I can assure you, absolutely, anger is when something that we value is being violated. And, you know, but I know, you think about it, it still happens. I can, for instance, I live in the country out in the Blue Mountains outside Sydney. And I can be walking and I can hear a shotgun of some hunting. And I can be brought to rage enormously. In that moment, the thoughts click off, the body's in gear. It's a normal reaction to horror. But I know if I don't do something about that, that stays with me. And I have these little voices over what I'd like to be doing in that moment. I am very human, I can assure you. It's also, I believe, a righteous anger. And, if I'm talking about say I'm talking about activism to somebody, a non-vegan person that's questioning this, and they say, oh, you just seem so angry, you vegans. And I say, yeah, you bet we're angry. And actually, I'm rather concerned that you're not. We've got something to be angry about. But actually, I don't want you to be angry and resentful of us or the mock us. You should be angry at the systems that are duping us into being part of a global sadism. All right, so I can say it with great vehemence. So when I look calm, I can assure you there's the ups and downs of life. I am very human. I've just learned that actually to be an instrument of change, I've got to bring myself to this because life's unbearable. What we know, I could just sit here and cry. I don't eat in restaurants where people eat animals. I use some people can sit with going to places with non-vegan people. I can't. I would sit there and cry. I'd rather get incredibly furious and be sarcastic, which I know is not going to help. I would do that because I know it doesn't work actually. But I would sit there and cry. So I just choose not to do it. And I would explain to people exactly why. So I hope that explains that. Underneath here is little legs going and.
Yes. Just you are have all the human emotions as well, and it's just a matter of how do we manage them? How do we care for our emotions? And we also have another question that Jennifer is sharing that her struggle is when she shares the truth and she shares some videos with family and friends, but they refuse to believe it and they say it's not that bad, and how to deal with her frustration.
Yeah, okay. Well, this comes into this other thing about being an explicit communicator, is how do we be, somebody coming through, is okay? Is how do we, that frustration, when we come up against that brick wall. Now, the majority of people, when they say it's not that bad, or I don't care, or, I'm sorry, I don't want to think about this, there's, people are more important. The majority of people are trying to get you off their back. If they say something shocking enough, like, oh, it's not that bad, or whatever, often I think they're pushing us away, so this conversation's going to stop, and they get off scot-free. And I don't think we should allow people to get off scot-free. They need to take ownership and responsibility for what they're saying, because at the moment, this animal's suffering. So before we come to your frustration, I think a frustration can be greatly alleviated if you communicate a little bit, with some tools that you can bring to bear here. So in all of this, it is if I say to you, think about a giraffe, immediately everyone's thinking about a giraffe, okay? There's an image somewhere of a giraffe and you're thinking, what's Claire going to say? In other words, an image comes up with me and I have to think of something. When we are just talking to people and they're saying, I don't care, and you say, well, you should care, don't you know how much suffering? Well, people suffer too. It's like table tennis. It's logical. If you ask them a question and ask them, so what do you mean by you don't care? At some level, they have to access some internal construct or image, and then their voice and their reaction is related to the experience. And we're going to take them back to the animal suffering because we want them to experience that. The vast majority are traumatized by it. Okay? And so don't just share some information. So when you show things to people and you say, what do you think? And they say, well, it's awful, I know, but, it can't be that bad. What do you mean it's not that bad? Okay? And they say, well, these animals have a great life first, and it's only at the end of their lives. And what do you mean by great life? You keep asking questions for them to access those images of what it is, because then while they're in that little ballpark, you can actually say, well, it might come as a surprise to you, but it's interesting we use the word humane and slaughter together, isn't it? That doesn't go in my thing. It's like saying, pleasurable brutality. These words don't go together. But once they've got some image or association in their head, anything you say to them has greater connection with the potential to make the emotion. Okay? Remember, we need the emotional connection with the suffering. If they blank us, it's get off my back, I'll now distract myself because this is too painful usually. All right? Now, a lot of people might say, how dare you show me this information? You made me feel horrible. And say, if there was another way for me not to make you feel horrible, I would. And yet the reality is we have all been lied to through this, and these animals are suffering at the moment. And it's only the fact that our choices are contributing to that. So I'm sure you're angry and upset, and I can assure you I am too. But I'm going to invite you to be angry at the organisations and the institutions that allow this to be. Because, I think we're pretty, most of us are pretty decent. Notice I use the word we. When you're losing rapport and people start resisting you by using the word we, look, we're all in this together. Do you know how much we've been lied to? There was a time when I thought animals were treated well, but they're not. We have all been lied to, and it's only by finding out this information that we can make informed choices. We partner. If we start saying, well, I've become this, you can do it too, it's not that hard, we're demonizing them really, and they feel you're telling me what to do, you think you're better than me. And do you remember, like I showed you on the Cube of Truth, it becomes about the dynamic, not about the images we're creating in their head or what we're showing them of the suffering of the animals. All right, so this is, so get them to ask the question. When someone says, I remember talking to someone once and they were talking about hunting. And they said, they had a pair of fur boots on or something. And I said, so, we started talking and I said, so are you aware of, what goes into that process? They may or may not know. And they said, oh, yes, I really am, and I don't care. And what do we want to do in that moment? You want to grab them around the neck and say, well, how dare you be so selfish? But I didn't. Why let the person then lose the opportunity to come into their compassionate self, and they attack you and say, well, who do you think you are? What I said, she said, I honestly don't care. I looked her in the eye and I said, what is it like for you to hear yourself say that? So I forced her to stay with that, and she started to become really uncomfortable. Well, it's, there's so many things to worry about. She indicated that it wasn't that she didn't care. She felt uncomfortable. She knew I was going to tell her something. We need to rock that emotion, but now we need to make a connection and with the solution to it. And I said, yeah, what I'm hearing from you is that actually, I think you do care. I said, it's just probably too much. But the reality is our choices, even if we don't see it, we're paying for something, we're paying for someone else to do it. And, what do you think about us doing? What do you think about us doing that? Yeah, I softened it again. Remember, we've got to put aside often our desire to say the really aggressive things we might want to say in the interest of getting the person to change their behavior. The animals need us to stop eating them, wearing them, buying products and cosmetics that are testing on them. All right, so sometimes we have to forego with a little bit of, and remember, the more we calm down, if we're agitated, they'll become besides. That definitely. Any more questions, Lisa?
Oh, well, thank you so much. That was an excellent answer. One that I know many of us have concerns about what to do with our frustration. Let's see, we have a couple of questions. I know we're coming towards the end of the webinar. One of them is about, like, when doing the Cube of Truth, for example, or even things like meditation, are you concerned about perpetuating the idea of the angry vegan or the stereotype of the hippie vegan? And although the person who's asking knows how important it really is to do these type of actions and also the self-care, she's wondering, or he is wondering about if the stereotypes themselves that actually create distance between the activists and their audience. I think that's the main part of the question.
Yes. Yeah, in the Cube of Truth, you mean?
Or not specifically that, but any kind of action where we're out in the public view and the concern is about the stereotypes about us, how they create distance between activists and their audience.
Sure. If moderation worked and actually gently coaxing people into this awareness, if that worked, it might be a more pleasant way to do it. The reality is, seeing is believing. People have to see something, and often the majority of people, I think, have to see, and they have to see video footage. They have to see what is going on. And so there's no easy way to share a very bad bit of news, is there? I think a lot of people's resistance is because they feel at some level, like that Vystopia I talked about is, what else don't I know? Well, if I have to accept that I don't know this and someone's lied to me, what if I have to question the whole of my life? Education, pharmaceuticals, immunizations, the military, the government, the church, and people become very, very distressed. So when we're, in terms of perpetuating a stereotype, though, if people remember how you make them feel. Okay? And so if we can be really reasonable human beings that are not out there to be bolshy and rude and angry all the time and tell people, however, we've got a right to be, we're furious. How dare people do this to how people, allow decent human beings, which I think we're born into, to turn into monsters through becoming paying contract killers to use these animals. We've got a lot to be angry about. When we're in the public eye, we have to say, how can I be an instrument of change? So yes, showing that footage is very confronting. And some people say, how can you do this? It's so distressing. Well, moderation's not working. If logic alone could change the world, then wouldn't it be great? People should just hear about this and they should become vegan right away. They should think that one animal suffered in my book, but they don't. They, not because people are horrible. Most people are trying to put a roof over their head and, look after their families and have a decent life and say, why am I here in the first place? We then come along and say everything you've been doing is causing a problem. They resist us even more. So I think the best way we've got to show people the information is partner with people when you're on the media, when someone goes to a vigil and the camera's there, is say, we're all being duped as a public. We need to know about this, this is the industrialists doing this. This is the government allowing this to happen. And as members of the public, we're all pretty reasonable people. It's not just the activists here today. And if we don't know what we're buying, how can we be better people? It's actually when people look at us, they think we're pretty reasonable people. Okay, are spirited and we're passionate about something, and so we should be, and actually so should they. If we're rude to people and we show them, say, in the Cube of Truth or vigil or leafleting, and we start abusing people, they're just going to think we're just rude people, zealots, over-righteous, telling us what to do, and we lose the opportunity for the animal. I think we've got the biggest job on the planet, really, because it's because of the ubiquitous abuse of animals. People cannot be a little bit pregnant. Most people do not agree on animal cruelty, and yet 98% of the population are paying for it to happen. And so most people, have been duped, and they've got what we call psychic defenses to say, oh, don't make me feel like that. The world's painful enough. We lie to ourselves, because it's painful. So let's be the best instruments we can be. Let's not be those aggressive, pushy vegans. You don't have to appear all calm as I'm appearing now, because I know I'm speaking to a group of activists that are making me feel calmer, knowing you're out there doing the amazing work you're doing. There's times when, can I briefly share a story, Lisa?
Oh, yes, of course.
Right, and in the interest of time. I live in the country, and neighbours are quite spread out. And some neighbours invited me to celebrate Australia Day. Okay, that's once a year. It's a bit like Thanksgiving. And, I felt my heart go down because I knew it was going to be a barbecue. I knew no way I was going to go. And I could share this hopefully amongst friends. And the person said, Claire, would you, we'd love you to come to the celebrate thing. We'd have a barbecue and play some music and play some football and whatever. And in that moment, the naughty person in me wanted to say what I wanted to say, which is what I thought was to say, look, very nice of you. At this moment, you probably think I'm quite a nice, calm, reasonable neighbour. But I promise you, if I was to share with you what I think about this barbecue, I'm probably going to dismantle the basis on which your whole day and probably your whole life is created. Now, that might have made me feel better in the time, a little bit of that, but actually it wouldn't. In the moment I would have thought that was a horrible thing to do. That person is so sweet. They're trying to get me to come and enjoy a nice day. But that was my visceral reaction. And I didn't. And I said, thank you so much. It's really nice for you. I do actually have other plans, but it's a really kind invitation. It would not have served me to be sarcastic, to be cruel. But the reality is, if I'm really going to tell you where your dinner's coming from, I am going to dismantle the basis on which your life's based. And would that make me feel better in the moment? Maybe for a second. And then I'd feel horrible that actually I'd let the animals down because the person shoots the messenger and they're still eating animals and the animals in the cage. All right, but allow ourselves to be. So by being a reasonable person, however, I met that person again walking with the dogs, and she mentioned something, and I said to her, have you seen the documentary Kangaroo? An Australian animal. And she said, no. I said, gosh, I've just seen it. I said, and we really all need to see it. what we are told is not true. And are you aware of? And I teased her into that awareness. And she's starting to see that. I think that was a better form of advocacy. Because if I get her to like me and think I'm reasonable, I know she's reasonable. We're into expanding the circle of compassion. So just one quick thing about families, Lisa. I know it's a bit of a segue, but I just want to get this in as a tip. Is often when we're trying to, for people that can't get their families to see the footage, can't get the families to come and watch Dominion, whatever, can't even get them to watch something on dairy, we keep pushing that and we think, come on, you need to see this. It's not, and we try to do it appealing to the decency of another human being. If that's not working, I find what a lot of, particularly young activists living at home find useful, is switch to the relationship. So if you keep asking, a 15-year-old said to me, how do I get my mum to see that being a vegetarian is not good enough? It's not okay. Milk and cheese is, meat in a glass. And I said, nothing was working. Mum wouldn't watch it. I said, switch to the relationship. Mum, does your mum love you? Yes, she does. Does mum want to understand her 15-year-old? Of course. Would she be upset if you said, you don't understand me anymore, mum? I don't feel close to you? Of course she would. So she went home to mum and said, Mum, I'm feeling really sad. I just feel the closeness between us is gone. What do you mean, dear? Mum, honestly, Mum, I don't feel you understand me anymore. Of course I do. I'm always there to listen to you. But actually, Mum, you honestly can't. Until you've seen what I see, you will never be able to really understand the suffering I'm going through. And I just feel sad about it. And Mum started to feel really uncomfortable. And so she was appealing to the dynamic, the relationship. It became about, Mum, you don't understand me, as opposed to, Mum, you need to stop eating dairy. And of course, Mum was caught in what we call cognitive dissonance, which is, I want to be a good mum. I want my daughter to understand me. And so Mum saw the video footage, Mothers Against Dairy. And you see, so this is often a little technique. Switch to the relationship and what's the little thing that's going on in between, it really upsets me that you're mocking me. When did compassion become something to laugh at? I know you're a decent person, so what is it really that bothers you about me telling you this? See, it's a different type of dialogue. Okay, so hopefully the essential skills for vegan advocacy will give you some of those tools. And in the Vystopia book, I've got a whole section on self-care, as well as the triggers and the symptoms and other things, but also on communication, so that we become exquisite influencers and people go, oh, tell me more, and I wish you had told me a long time ago. Well, people do.
Yes, wow. Thank you so much, Claire, for all of these amazing tips. And we had one last question, if you're up for it, and then I think we'll go ahead and end the webinar. Question is that, does Vystopia and do our reactions to stress affect other areas of our lives? So the person
Absolutely.
who's asking, yeah.
That's right. Our stress of Vystopia affect other areas of our lives. Yeah. Well, I think it comes back to the burden of knowing. When we know about that systematized cruelty, when we come up against the resistance of other people, we experience the anguish, the depression, the anger, the loneliness, the alienation. That in and of itself affects the joy we can get out of other aspects of life often. It also gets us to question other things. So, often the traditions that we used to go to, you might have enjoyed Thanksgiving in the past. Now it becomes a painful reality. I have a girlfriend of 40 years I'm very close to. She's in the UK. If I was there more, we could talk about veganism, and I've started to send her things, of course, but I don't see her probably every 3 years. But, we used to go and have afternoon tea with jams and cream on our scones. That's a very English thing to do back in London. We would go and buy, and much to my deep shame, I might buy a cashmere sweater 25 years ago. It was part of our legacy of treating each other and whatever. So the things we used to do don't work anymore. Okay, things that we used to enjoy, we find trivial. People say, "Do you want to come to the theatre?" And you think, why entertain myself? I think I could do better doing this. It's important to go to art galleries and theatres, and that's your thing, is to bring the joy back into our lives. But actually, for a lot of people, I say sometimes a lot of us, we often think what used to work doesn't work anymore. But don't judge yourself if you do that, but also, bring that joy back into your life as a resourcing thing, and to celebrate the other things as well. I find that I can really enjoy myself around other vegan activists. Animal activist is a vegan activist, is because I know we're all out there doing so much. And actually, when we let our hair down and watch a good movie and eat good food and we talk about, other things, it's okay, because I don't feel we're just entertaining ourselves and passing the time of day. We are really just enjoying ourselves, resourcing ourselves, having fun to go back into the world and do the work we're doing. So absolutely. One chapter I write about is actually called How Deep Does the Rabbit Hole Go, I think it's called. And it basically, because once you start questioning everything, people are saying, just Lisa, don't be a conspiracy theorist. You're going a bit far now. And we get frustrated. So I've given 10 ideas with examples in little vignettes and research. So, and it might be, it starts off talking about Edward Snowden, because you give that person an example and say, hey, there was a time we believed that, our privacy was sacrosanct. And yet this person proved that maybe it's not. The fact that that even happens means it can happen somewhere else. So I'm inviting you to think about this. So instead of us trying to just pull on these experiences, I've got lots of little things of research and through economics, science, innovation. It's not a huge book, but it will give you a succinct way to have the most difficult conversations and coax people into that area. So deal with your Vystopia and bring people into the solution.
And then our very last closing comment is just, how do you stay positive about the future? Personally.
Yeah, well, I have my ups and downs. And I did say to you, I believe we're going to have a vegan world in our life. How do I stay positive? A couple of things changed my life very briefly. One was a process called spiral dynamics. If we've got any therapists on the line, they may well know about that. It's like a big spiral image, explains different levels of consciousness in society. And it says, it's not a linear process. We don't all become elevated and then superior to the lower levels. It says we're all evolving and changing. This is like spiral. And, at the bottom level, we've got a very tribal sort of, we've always done this. You can't tell me what to do. This is our traditions. We don't need to. Or people are very conformist or very individualistic, and the different layers go up. And then we've got that more environmental awareness, but we're still saying we want to save the environment as if we're superior to it somehow. And then we've got this other area that says we are the environment. And I think veganism plus beyond is around there, in the sense of we're holding the possibility to create more compassion. Speak to people, when we speak, it's no good speaking ethics and getting frustrated at people who are coming from a conformist thing and say, well, isn't right, we wouldn't be allowed to do it, or we've always done this. Speak to people in the language they're there, coax them up to greater awareness. We've got to tip them, pushing them towards it. And the other thing is about tipping points. Is we know that what about the early innovators of any ideas reach as about 2.5% of the population. When we reach 2.5%, say it was mobile phone adoption. People 25 years ago said it would never take off. The early innovators invested heavily in it. Then suddenly you get the early adopters, which another 13.5%. As soon as it reaches 16%, you get over 30%, the early majority, and then another late majority. And then everybody has a mobile phone. The 7% of people, called the laggards in this normal distribution curve, is Granny, who says, if I don't get a mobile phone, I can't talk to my grandson. But she doesn't really want a mobile phone. In social change, we are in the innovator stage. We are fast becoming, when we reach about 2.5% in all forms of social change and adoption of products or services, when it reaches 2.5%, there is a massive increase of 13.5, very much more quickly than the first ones. When we reach 16%, people start to move very quickly. The reason I think we're going to see a vegan world in our lifetime, in fact, is that, I'm just, because it's the only way I keep going, and I'm determined to do my part as you are, is because actually most people, I believe, are not going to come to this through consciousness. They're not going to come through the awareness of animal social justice. They're going to do it for the same reason they're doing what they do now. They follow. All right? Not because they're stupid, or no, that's a bit of a kind word, I know, but because they're intellectually not capable. You can have a brain surgeon or professor who will not make that connection. It's not about intelligence here. It's about emotional connection to something beyond ourselves. So I think most people eat meat 3 times a day. Most people do the jobs they do, get into the debt they do, or who will get into debt, of course, is surviving, but they are driven to think there's not another way because we're influenced. All right? All of us are influenced. Okay? As the more as veganism grows, people will start to adopt that lifestyle for their health, or because everyone else does it, etc. All right, so that's why I feel so hopeful. But I get my moments of feeling very, very challenged and being brought to tears. I can promise you. That's where the self care. And when I talk to know people, I've seen people they've hung on the line here. This keeps me at night. We are not on our own. This rising tide of social awareness, and the more of us that get out active and do things, that inspires me. I thought I was on my own. Oh my goodness, I don't think I'd be anywhere with just a small group. We are a massive army of people um, bringing change to the world. So that's why. I hope that helps. I'll remember that question when I'm feeling in the depths of despair and I find out something, no doubt, in the near future. But I'll move myself quickly.
Well, thank you so much, Claire. This has been an invaluable resource, this webinar. I know I'm going to refer it to others. And for people who've joined us from the webinar, we will be sending a replay link so that you can share this with people. You can also watch it over and over again for inspiration, re-asking the questions and listening to the answers. So it's been a true delight and an honor to share this time together with everyone. I want to thank you for your questions and your participation, and definitely we thank you, Claire, for your book and for your dedication to helping many of us vegans to feel hopeful for the future and also give us some tools to continue managing some of the issues that come up in our day-to-day lives. So thank you so very much.
Thank you, everyone, for putting this on.
Yes. So again, for everyone, if you would like to join us, we have webinars every month, which we involve people who, like Claire, who are experts in their field, to share their wisdom with us. And you can tune into those from idausa.org/events. And we also have a support line for animal activists. Just so you know, you can call and get free counseling and support and resources such as a link to the webinar or other items that we have available. And you can access that through idausa.org/activist support. We're here to support you, and we're so grateful to everyone for all of your amazing work to help the animals. And yes, we will have a vegan world one day. So thanks to everyone for joining us. Have a wonderful evening, and thanks again, Claire. Take care.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.